Hi, I'm Tim Robinson, Editor-in-Chief of AEROSPACE, and with me is Deputy Editor Steve Bridgewater.
Hi guys.
And Features Editor Jack Richardson.
Hello.
Welcome to AEROSPACE NOTAM, another edition of our podcast, video cast looking at global aviation, aerospace and space news, and what we have upcoming in the next issue of AEROSPACE, March 2025. You may notice I'm suffering a little bit here with some kind of cold flu, so keep your distance, viewers at home. In the magazine, we cover everything from GA to spaceflight, from airliners to airports, from air law to eVTOLs. It's been another busy month. Good grief, yeah. In terms of aviation news and in terms of world news, we're just trying to keep our heads above water and keep up with things. But where have we been in the past month? Jack, you start. Where have you been?
Well, on Valentine's Day, I got to go to Edgbaston Cricket Ground in Birmingham.
Very romantic, isn't it?
Where I attended a Flight Crowd boot camp. Now, for those who don't know, Flight Crowd is a not-for-profit organisation which seeks to engage young people in STEM and aviation, specifically advanced air mobility. And it was a really enlightening day. So they had exhibitors such as West Midlands Police talking about their use of drones, a keynote from Coventry City Council saying how drones can be used in local governments for functions you wouldn't think of, and groups of students making presentations on eVTOLs they've designed for emergency response. So it was really a very interesting trip.
So what sort of age group are the kids?
They vary. So they're put into groups based on their age ranges, and the youngest can be as little as 14, they can be up to 25. So students, school students, university, and all of it was a week-long boot camp. So Monday to Thursday, the teams worked on their design virtually, and then they got together in Birmingham on the Friday to make their presentations.
Okay, and that's really sort of like reaching a more diverse sort of demographic of young people, and sort of saying that here's future flight, here's electric flight, here are drones, advanced air mobility, here's what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and to change public perceptions as well.
Okay.
The subject of electric flight.
Electric flight. So I've been out last week. I was down at Fair Oaks and with our president, our RAS president, David Chin, who was, I think we can probably easily say, he was the first RAS president to fly in an electric aircraft, courtesy of 4Air, Adam Twiddle, and Synergy Aviation. That was a Velis Electro aircraft. Pipistrel from there that's being used down there, and so he was up there. He had a flight in an electric aircraft. He also plugged it in, refueled it, as it were, and he came back. I unfortunately didn't get to fly it myself, but actually, watching him, taxi out and what have you, very, very quiet. Really, really quiet. So some interesting things from the flight and his impressions as well. Stay tuned for that. But very, very quiet taxiing on the ground for starters. And it's a first generation electric aircraft. So about 45 minutes, 50 minutes endurance, 45 minutes to recharge it. But get this, 5p an hour. For electric,
for the electric. Obviously, you've got to factor in the maintenance of the hangar and things on top. But
maintenance is pretty minimal.
Okay.
Because what's the biggest maintenance in an aircraft?
Engine.
The engine. So the upfront costs are more. That is true. But in terms of low cost, pure flying fun, for short distances, I think the nearest thing is probably maybe motor glider. That's about, I think, like £45 an hour.
Yeah, give or take.
Something like that. So
certainly for circuit training, something like that is going to be an ideal tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the further you get on with your private pilot's license, the longer the endurance the flights. But for those initial flights and for circuits of bumps, touch and goes, that's a really good option. It's going to bring down the cost of flying. So.
You can do 3/4 of your towards your PPL. And the final quarter is obviously, you need a piston or something to do the cross-country stuff. But
that's really open up general aviation.
It could, early days yet, but it's kind of like a nice sort of a glimpse of the future. So there. What about you?
I was sent to Coventry. quite literally. I went with our CEO, Dave Edwards. Dave gave a keynote speech at Coventry University, their Sustainability in Flight conference. And it was nice for me to go back. So actually, Coventry University was my university, and I worked out 29 years since I was last there, and I didn't recognise a single thing. I'm not sure that's because it's changed or whether I just am getting old, I'm not sure. But it was it was great to sit down in a room full of aeronautical engineering students and listen to their view of the future and the opportunities that they see. And whether that was SAF, whether that was hydrogen, whether it was advanced aerodynamics. Even I was talking to one student who was doing his thesis on air traffic management and integrating AI into ATM. So really interesting to actually get, really sitting around the table with these students and listening to what's important to them.
Fantastic. Okay. And then also at the weekend I was off at RAF Museum at Cosford, so in the Midlands. That's always nice. I've been there a while. I haven't been there for a while, and have a look around there. It's always good to go around there, see what's new, see what's been moved. Go around, see the exhibits. Bravo November, Chinook helicopter there, TSR2. Interestingly, there's some nice rare stuff in there that you don't see anywhere else, like German glide bombs and German two-stage sort of surface-to-air missile from 1944, and also the Cold War sort of hangar as well, which is a retreat, Vulcan. And leading on to the next bit, I think the thing with there is. The Cold War, 80 years, 70 years that has defined, post-war geopolitics, and everything now is up in the air. That was pretty surreal going in there and thinking about the history, thinking about the NATO as an alliance, and what's happening at the moment. We'll get on to that in a second.
Yeah, I agree. I've spent Cosford was my local museum growing up. I spent a lot of time there over the years, and the Cold War exhibition really is first class. And like you say, I think what I like about it is it brings the military history in with the social history.
Yeah.
I went there with my late father when he was alive, and they've got an area where they play newsreel from the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I sat down with my dad and had a conversation about what it was like for him to go through the Cuban Missile Crisis and what their fears were. And so if you've not been to that Cosford, it really is an eye-opening and sobering place.
Brilliant, yes. So on to our news roundup. So, we're going to try and pack in as much as we can. It's been a really busy month, and what has caught our eyes unusual as well was getting around it, geopolitics and the massive shift. Sort of 80 years of what we thought was a solid, alliance. What happens next with the US, Ukraine? We can't possibly cover it all here. We're just going to have to look at it from the aerospace point of view or the air power point of view. But I think there's going to be some implications there. US supply chain. What's going to happen with that? Countries are now openly, or people are now sort of openly discussing about how reliant they are on US kit, which, occasionally was on the fringes before. People were sort of talking about, are we buying too much US equipment? Now there is a wholesale move of people now looking seriously. How do we, divorce, if you like, from US sort of industry, if you like? What capabilities can Europe grow itself? How do you get sovereign capability back? It's something that's going to take decades to kind of sort out. Second point I would say is UK defence boost. Now, To Trump's credit, he has galvanised something that your previous US presidents have always sort of said. You don't need to do more. I spend more on defence. You need to do provide for its own defence. That is now front and centre. Defence is now the number one priority over everything else, which is quite incredible. If you've been covering UK defence, it always gets pushed out. People are politicians usually like to talk about it, and then it gets forgotten about. So we've got the SDR coming up. That's probably having to be rewritten every five minutes, as fast as things are happening. But also UK defence, that's going to be boosted. It's going to be across Europe as well. So, defence companies across Europe, they're going to be looking to expand, to grow, to increase their production, and to really kind of fill in the gaps.
We've seen this right across the spectrum. So with shares have been very high in major defence primes, but also we've seen Prime Minister Keir Starmer is meeting with SME companies over his social media.
And I think the final thing there is from the operational point of view as well. There's been talk there of obviously the Prime Minister, the UK Prime Minister, has said about the idea of a peacekeeping force, a stabilisation force, whatever you want to call it, assurance force. We're going to put boots on the ground or planes in the air. Now, air power is NATO's strong point, even without the US. But I think there are some questions there as to what exactly they would be expected to do. Because remember, a lot of the stuff that is going on in terms of air power is these small drones, first-person drones, kind of wire-guided now, wire-controlled. What can a Typhoon or an F-35 do about those sort of things breaking any ceasefire? Not quite entirely sure. Also, from the other side, glide bombs being or glide stand-off weapons being launched from Russian territory. Exactly. Again, what are you able to do? We're not talking here about close air support aircraft really violating the front line or anything like that going on. It's not a battle act in the traditional sense. So those are one of the plans that have been mooted. By the time this comes out, and you see this, it could well have moved on. But the implications of that is going to be far-reaching and wider. And we're also, on the civil side of stuff that we're still talking about as well. Air traffic modernisation in the US, tariffs. That's going to affect the global aerospace supply chain. So it's one to watch. What else have we got there, Steve? What have you got?
Shall I lighten the mood a little bit?
Go on.
Flying cars are here. We've got flying cars. We've talked about advanced air mobility so much on the podcast over the last year and a half now. And I think the phrase flying car has been overused, but there's a company, it shows up the camera now, look at that, a proper car that flies. This is a company called Leo Flight Corporation, and they unveiled virtually at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas their solo car. So this is a single-seat sports car that flies. Looks really cool. 63 miles an hour. Yeah. Not perhaps the sports car performance that you were thinking of. Range of 20 miles, $99,000.
Right, okay.
But what a toy.
Yeah.
And so that's their first plan. Then the plan is to scale up from that with their coupe, which is the 4-seat version. That one, 200 miles an hour, 250-mile range, but $459,000 base price. They've got a lot of orders for them. So in terms of flying these, the single-seater is classed as an ultralight, so you don't need a pilot's license. The 4-seater falls under the US Mosaic scheme, which is 20 hours of training to fly. So it's, again, we've talked about bringing flying to the masses. It's an opportunity to do that, but I just think it's a really cool-looking machine. That's the reason we've got it as our blueprint in this issue.
It's like the Batmobile, isn't it?
It is like the Batmobile.
Yeah.
It's a very, very cool-looking thing. So, 100 lift fans in it. It's obviously a pure electric vehicle as well.
What about you, Jack? What's called your line?
Well, again, a bit back to reality, I'm afraid. Something from Ukraine. As rifts develop between the US and European allies, we've seen pictures now of the first Mirage 2000 jets supplied by France operating over Ukraine. Now, this will theoretically give Ukraine the advantage of being able to easily integrate French and European weaponry onto this aircraft. But again, the numbers would appear just too small to make much of a difference at this stage.
So what are they using the Mirage for, Jack? Is it air to ground or air?
It's multi-role, so use it for air defence and also fit them with cruise missiles for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've already seen pictures of the Su-25 using the ASSM hammer.
ASSM, that's right.
Hammer,
yes.
it's like a rocket-powered, LGB, laser guided bomb. Yeah, I mean, it helps their sort of like, kind of, I suppose, make up for losses that they've suffered in terms of their existing aircraft. So yeah, the other thing that obviously big news here is in sustainable aviation that's gone on. So we've had a bit of news there. Biggest one probably is Airbus has paused its hydrogen plans. So a few years back, we saw that they announced ambitious plans for Zero E, which was a hydrogen-powered airliner. There was various concepts floating around, whether it could be a blended wing body, whether it would be twin engine, whether it had even have propellers. They've now paused that. They've said that the ecosystem really isn't ready, so they're scaling back plans on that, and also plus with sort of flight testing of electric engine on the A380.
Okay.
So that's a big blow there for sort of zero carbon aviation rather than zero emission. Evasion. Alice Aviation has also gone bankrupt.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that one myself. It's so we've followed aviation for quite a long time with their Alice aircraft. Gone through a number of iterations. Flew about 18 months ago for a single flight. They've now laid off all their staff and put the project on pause. This was an all-electric regional airliner project called Alice. To coin a phrase, I guess their hangar mates at Mojave are going to have to get used to not living next door to Alice.
Okay, well done. Jack, what about you? What about seaplanes?
Oh yes, so this is again as the being environmentally friendly continues to take centre stage despite these setbacks. There's has been one of the announcements. There's a Virginia-based startup called Tidal Flight has secured orders from a Florida-based airline to supply its hybrid electric seaplane. Now, I think this is quite an intriguing design because the tail is a V-shaped and it has two propellers mounted on that tail, and this is a 9 to 12 seats hybrid electric aircraft, which the manufacturer hopes can unlock commuter flights in coastal areas.
Okay.
Another one looking at the amphibian flying boat.
There's loads of them these days.
Yeah. The next big thing.
Yeah.
So
have you got any good news for us, Tom?
I've got some good news. Yeah. So there's a little bit of good news here in terms of that. We've had para-astronaut John McFarlane, who is an amputee. He's a Paralympian, but he's also he's a reserve astronaut, and he's just been cleared for a space mission to the ISS.
Very good.
So this was a groundbreaking ESA research project to basically say, can disabled people go into space? What are the challenges? What are the drawbacks? They've come back and said, so basically, no showstoppers, and that's really good news because in zero gravity, do you need all your limbs?
Yeah.
No, is the answer really? So really good to see that approved, and a massive sort of inspirational thing, I think, of showing that space flight is now. We see a lot of commercial astronauts or people that are on Blue Origin or space tourists. But if you think about the future, going further into the future, you're going to have people that are working, living in space permanently. You might therefore have people working on asteroids who are end up in some kind of industrial accident, and they get a replacement limb and they carry on working.
That's what's been factored in.
Yeah. So that was really good news anyway.
I've got a good news story as well. One of the British Defence and Sustainability, actually. So this is the Tornado to Tempest recycling programme now, which has come through Rolls-Royce, grinding down titanium blades from Tornado engines, so RB199 would that be, and creating nose cones for Orpheus, which is the development engine they're working on for Tempest. So looking at, we know that when Tornado went out of service, it went through the Reduce to Produce programme, RTP. So this is taking this to another level now, actually grinding down and reusing compost. And this was something that was first discussed when we had our Tempest round table, wasn't it? It was first muted, which was just about 2 years ago now. So they've actually done it now for the first time.
Yeah, and when we're looking at things like critical minerals or critical materials, supply chain stuff like that, it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, well, where do we get to take it from? Oh, well, there's a load of old engines sat there in a shed somewhere. Let's look at those. And a great way to keep the tornado flying in a way.
This is make use of 3D printing as well, hasn't it? In the production process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really good. Jack, anything else?
So this is a space one, not so good, I'm afraid. But Boeing are looking to lay off a significant proportion of their space launch operations as developments change significantly in the US spaceflight program, and Blue Origin are also looking to lay off employees.
So Blue Origin, that's obviously a different thing because they're now going into they're scaling down on their R&D. They're going into sort of like the manufacturing phase. They don't need as many people on the R&D side of things. SLS, though, obviously that is now up in limbo a little bit as to what happens there with NASA. NASA's not a new administrator. Jared is not yet in post, but it will be interesting to see there. And obviously, President Trump saying that he wants boots on Mars. What happens then to Artemis?
Which is an interesting way of looking at it, particularly because any human flight to Mars, there can be a lot can be learned in both terms of expertise and producing resources from getting to the moon first.
So we're going to be watching that SLS, whether it survives or whether they just do a flyby. And then they call it quits after that. It might just be the flyby is the nearest one, and then anything beyond that is Starship. We'll wait to see what happens there. Right, okay, and now it's over to our regular segment of the podcast, Specialist Group Insights. So join us after the break.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Specialist Group Insight segment. This month, we're talking about flight operations with mixed gender crew, prompted by the recent CRJ crash in Toronto and the unfortunate rhetoric that followed that. It isn't intended to be a discussion on hiring practices or DEI issues or anything like that, but a look at how gender plays into flight deck dynamics, if it does at all, to be honest. Joining me to discuss this is Captain Kim Correa, who is a highly accomplished aviator with over 50 years of experience in military, commercial, and even general aviation. She's a recipient of the FAA's Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award and has dedicated her career to flight operations training and, of course, flight safety. Now, Kim began her career as a hurricane hunter, eventually in the US Air Force, and flew C-130s into pretty extreme weather before transitioning to the C-5 Galaxy as an instructor and check pilot. And after retiring from the USAF, she joined FedEx initially as a flight engineer on the Boeing 727, later advancing to first officer positions and ultimately captain on the MD-11. Alongside her flying career, she's played a key role in flight safety initiatives, including FOQA, ASAP, and of course SMS. She's also an assistant professor in the aviation program at the University of Memphis. And as one of few female pilots in the military and commercial aviation early in her career, Kim really navigated the challenges of a male-oriented industry while forging a path for the future generations that have come along behind her. So she's the perfect guest for today's discussion. Kim, thanks very much for joining me, and welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
So I guess we should start right at the beginning of your career. How did you end up on this path? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, I mean, it really began on Daddy's lab. My dad was a weekend pilot. We had a family airplane, and he always told his little girl she could be anything that she wanted. So I soloed on my 16th birthday, and I got my private when I was 17. And actually, one of my first flight instructors was a World War II WASP.
Wow.
Really interesting lady. So I kind of grew up hearing her stories, and then and actually at the time I was taking flying lessons with her, and women just didn't grow up to be professional pilots.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was a societal thing. About all you could do was be a flight instructor or just fly your own airplane.
Yeah, it's a different era in the industry.
Oh, it absolutely was. But then things started to change. But it took a while. I mean, I moved on from getting my private to going off to college and getting a degree in mathematics, and I wound up as an intern at the National Hurricane Center.
Amazing.
Working with statistical track forecasting, and then I parlayed that into eventually becoming a crew member in the back of the NOAA P3s. I ran the data systems and some of the equipment back there. But of course, I was still a private pilot. I still loved to fly. I really, truly wanted to sit up front in that P3.
Yeah. Excellent.
And so that was really inspiring. And then, right around that time, the military, it was opening up opportunities for women to fly, and I jumped on it, joined the Air Force.
Fantastic. So, you will obviously have seen a lot of changes in the industry from then until, now, or certainly when you retired. So you'd probably be the right person to ask, does gender ever influence how authority is naturally established in the cockpit, or is it purely experience and personality driven? Or can you make comparisons from where we were 50 years ago to where we are now, for example? Have things really progressed? Is this even an issue today?
It's progressed immensely. I mean, it's totally wonderful the way it's progressed so far. Like I said, when I was first learning to fly, I mean, I dreamed of being an airline pilot. I saw DC-3s and, like a DC-6. That was exciting. And then, the 707 to see my first jet. But I knew I couldn't fly those because society wouldn't allow it. But as times changed and, we moved in. Now I was one of the earlier women, not the first in the military, but one of the earlier women. And yes, gender absolutely played a role in my entire experience.
Yeah.
During pilot training and Air Force pilot training, probably about a third of my students were anywhere from, like openly hostile to trying to undermine me.
Wow.
So, but to say that another third were immensely supportive.
Yeah.
And the other third they just wanted to get through it,
Yeah.
And they couldn't be bothered with it. So, I mean, the vast majority of people have been supportive. It's a few bad apples that were, kind of made things unpleasant. The fortunate thing is there's fewer of those bad apples than there used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're right. I mean, we've come a long way. That's certainly true. Certainly my career, which has been shorter than yours, your generation, I think, took care of a lot of these issues for my generation anyway. So I think we've certainly moved in leaps and bounds there. Have you found situations with mixed gender crew where communication might be slightly different or affected, or CRM or any of those sorts of things? Or is it irrelevant these days whether you have a male-female crew or female-female crew, male-male crew? Have you noticed any sort of issues in that sense?
Well, definitely. I mean, male-female interaction is going to be different than male-male or female-female. And it's just the way we're built. It's, again, putting it in the historical context. When I started flying in the Air Force 40 years ago, the men could be actually fairly brutal, shall we say.
Yeah.
They gave me, some of them gave me very little respect. The another empty kitchen kind of attitude. But a lot of those guys were Vietnam era.
Yeah.
Kind of guys. But now I think the CRM has been immensely helpful, because even if you don't bond with your other crew member, which can also happen in same-sex crews, you can fall back on the CRM that we've been trained to get the airplane flown safely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. That's why we do that training, I suppose. So what about outside of the flight deck then, with passenger interaction and things along those lines? Is this something, I mean, certainly from the CRJ crash that happened in Toronto, a lot of the comments and things like that flooded the internet would have been from non-aviators, really, just passers-by, unfortunately. Did you find much of that, I don't want to say criticism, but did you find that people outside of the flight deck would look at a female captain or a female first officer differently than a male?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in the Air Force, we had we have this thing called Space A, where if you have seats in your airplane and there's a military member that wanted to fly to go somewhere to where you were going, they could ride on the seat.
Yeah.
And I a couple of times had people show up Space A getting a free ride. They'd come in, they'd see me, and they'd say, "Well, I can't fly with a woman." And it's like, well, the first time that happened made me feel kind of bad.
Yeah.
Second time it happened, it's like, okay, bye.
Wow, my goodness, yeah.
Yeah. Then later on, of course, in the airline, I think things were far more civilized and nice. I flew for FedEx, so I didn't have passengers.
Of course, yeah.
But of course, I did interact a lot with the maintenance and load crews.
Yeah.
On occasion, the maintenance would come up and they would talk to the male FO.
Yeah.
And, to try to explain a problem or have a need or something like that. And 99% of the time, the male FO would just turn around and point at me and say, "She's in charge."
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, I've seen that myself, actually. There's sometimes that natural assumption when people come up to the flight deck to walk up to the male. Even today, that does happen. I think sometimes with the passengers as well, not necessarily for bad reasons. It's just a sort of a natural instinct, unfortunately, So that makes me think, being an MD-11 pilot, you would have gone all over the world. And were there differences maybe in different parts of the world? Culturally, in different places that you flew, did you encounter sort of different reactions to being a female captain, let's say, in some places versus others? You don't have to name countries, it's okay, but did you find there was a sort of an international influence there?
There were definitely a couple of countries that wouldn't let me into the flight planning room.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. This was back in my Air Force days.
Yeah.
At the airline, all that stuff was taken care of, and they just
HR policy
digitally send it to us. But there were, and then even like on layovers and stuff, there's certain countries where you can just be you, and there are other countries where you better be a little bit more circumspect and watch where you go and talk to.
Yeah, fair enough. So if I were to steer us more towards the training environment, then do you ever come across differences in let's say standards? Maybe I know the standards are what they are, but did you ever come across situations where check airmen or something like that might treat you differently as a female pilot? Are there challenges for female aviators today, even in the training environment? Do they have to prove themselves more, or do you find that in the training environment the standards are very good and it's not really an issue? Or maybe it used to be, and that's something else that we fixed in recent history.
Yeah, it's something that we fixed, through time. I mean, in the beginning, and first of all, I think the check airmen they're at the high end of our career group. These are people who are highly experienced. They've seen a lot. They've done a lot. They're wiser and better trained. And so, in general, I'm going to say that I was treated better by them, and the standards are the standards, whether you're taking the check ride or me.
Yeah.
Going back into history, there were definitely a couple that just did not think I belonged there, period, no matter what I did. Yeah. And those people were fairly difficult to deal with. Like I had in Air Force initial pilot training, I had one guy that I flew with a couple times. He was just an instructor. And every ride with him was just awful, and it's like, I couldn't put my finger on it. And then we were having a debrief, and he just looks at me with hostility and says, "You remind me of my ex-wife."
Oh,
It's
wow.
like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I need a new instructor.
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, well, I'm certainly pleased to say that certainly in my own career, I don't see that sort of thing nowadays, which is not to say it doesn't happen, but it certainly doesn't happen when I'm watching, that's for sure. So it sounds to me anyway that your generation certainly helped sort of blaze a trail there for the generations of female aviators that came behind you. So why in the fallout of the CRJ accident, I guess it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, this sort of negativity towards female pilots flooded the internet for a couple of days there. What's behind all that? Is it just internet trolls? I mean, I can't imagine this came out of the industry itself. It's just people on the internet that don't know any better. Is that what's going on? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think our industry is great, and almost everybody is totally supportive.
Yeah.
We women have been flying now for 40, 50 years, depending on the country, and y'all know that we do a good job. And we're human. Some of us do an exemplary job. Some of us maybe only get by, but it's the same with the guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a comfort in that, actually, and a pride in the fact that we have come this far. I think it's wonderful, and I celebrate for my younger sisters. And to see these internet trolls, I mean, these people are monetizing being nasty.
Yeah.
And that is just wrong at multiple levels. And this isn't just with aviation. I mean, there's obviously something going on in Western society right now that it seems to allow this kind of behavior.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with that, and I think that certainly, speaking as two aviation professionals, I know certainly in my professional life I fly with male pilots and female pilots, and I don't look at either of them any differently. I don't notice any difference in CRM or handling skills or any of those sorts of things. Or I've been in the simulator. I've taught in the simulator with male and female pilots, and I don't really notice any difference. And in speaking with you, it sounds like a lot of the challenges from decades ago have really been ironed out. Which is not to say there aren't any challenges now. There may well be some residual challenges being a male that I maybe not as aware of. But it sounds like we've come so far with this now that really the fact that there was a female pilot on the flight deck during that particular event is completely irrelevant to the conversation.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people out there who can't succeed on their own, and the only way they can feel like they have any measure of success is that they denigrate other groups, and then we're an other.
Yeah, absolutely. So young aspiring female aviators out there who may be thinking that this is still an industry dominated by males, and all these issues may still exist. If they have that idea in their mind, do you have a message for them? Anything that you could pass along? Any advice?
I think the most important thing is just do a great job. Be proud of what you're doing, and stand tall.
Yeah.
We can do it. We have proved it over and over and over again. We can do it, and they can do it too. I have young female students in my program, and I mean, it's just wonderful to see them develop.
Brilliant.
So I celebrate them. My own daughter is flying with one of my graduates, female graduates. So.
Oh, fantastic. That's excellent. So you have a daughter that went into the flying industry as well. That's brilliant. Excellent.
She's just taking lessons towards her private right now. She's
Great.
She actually wants to go to medical school, but she says, well, maybe I'll be a pilot because this is kind of fun.
Yeah, once it gets into your blood, that's for sure.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, Kim, thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation today. And I think that we can sort of wrap things up by saying that the industry's come so far now, and the CRM between males and females on the flight deck today is, certainly in my experience, very good. I haven't noticed any difference in handling or managing emergencies or any of that sort of thing, simulators and whatnot. So really, I think anything that's swirling around out there in the internet right now is just purely, as you say, people trying to capitalize on a really unfortunate event by picking on that one detail. But I can't see that there would be any reason that would have been a contributing factor to an accident. So.
No, and the ladies just have to put it in that perspective and know they're doing a good job.
Welcome back after the break. So, right, on to our features. What have we got in the March edition of Aerospace? It's now back for the printers, looking good as ever. What a front cover that is. I'm going to lead off with the
cover story.
Cover story is that's Boom and completing its flight test with the XB1. So that was a big aeronautical milestone there for Boom. They're now on to freezing the design of Overture. They've got some Schlieren photograph. They've got a nice picture from NASA there of the Sonic Boom in action. It was unfortunately too late for the print issue of the magazine, but excellent interview there. Myself and Joe Coles. Joe Coles got to speak to the test pilot. Some very, very interesting stuff on how the XB1 flies. Really, the most challenging aircraft to land, I think he said.
That's what Geppetto said, wasn't it? Yeah, and you can believe it.
It hasn't got an injection seat. He was up there doing the right stuff, where sort of Chuck Yeager style, going up against the demon that lives at Mach 1. So what else we got there, Joe?
So something else we've got on the cover here is an exclusive cutaway of China's mysterious J-36 aircraft. Now this made its first public appearance on Boxing Day last year, and it's got some very intriguing features such as 3 engines. And in this piece, Bill Sweetman tries to unravel the various mysteries of this aircraft and exactly what role it's envisaged for.
And as Jack said, cutaway drawing, Joe Picarelli.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a brand new cutaway drawing of an aircraft? It's like the good old days of the 80s, isn't it?
Well, it's so there for those of you listening. You won't be able to see this, but that is a full page cutaway. That's brilliant stuff, and obviously that is Bill Sweetman says this is the biggest mystery since the MiG-25.
Yeah.
Of trying to put together, and that's that educated guess, very educated guess in Bill Sweetman's case, but of looking at the externals. Where would you put the fuel? Where would you put the engines? We know stuff of the free intake. I mean, the most intriguing thing about that, I think, is it's got 3 engines. Why would you have 3 engines? What are they there for? Dual cockpit, massive big landing gear, and then obviously all those control surfaces on the rear side, on the rear edge.
Full radar array.
Could well be, but I mean, brilliant stuff. I mean, that is one to have a real kind of.
It really is, Bill's been analysing this aircraft for a long time. And he says in there, going back to the good old days when the Russians used to make all their aircraft blurred. We had to work from the blurred photographs, and we're back to that again. So really good insight from Bill, and great cutaway from Joe.
Steve, you've been looking at what's happening with SAF. Scaling up SAF.
Scaling up SAF, yeah. So start of this year, the UK government brought in the SAF mandate, Sustainable Aviation Fuel mandate. And I thought it'd be a good time to just have a bit of a dummies guide, really, into SAF. So what's it made from? What is it? What's it made from? Where do we get the components from? How much are we making? What's the UK sector like? And what's the long-term view of this? So we've basically given a breakdown as to the various types. So some of it's made from fatty acids, some of it can be made from even just salt marsh grasses and things like that. So we looked at all the options, pros and cons of each of them. And then we've got a map showing the various facilities which are developing sustainable aviation fuel refineries in the UK. At the moment, there's only one, Phillips 66 at Humberside, but there's around 20 sites now which have had government funding. We list what funding they've had towards what, and what their projected output is going to be by the sort of 2026 period. The general feeling is we're still a long way away from producing enough SAF.
It's a drop in the ocean, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
There are plans to scale up. There's another round of government investment gone in early this year. But it's the UK's got the opportunity to be a real leader in sustainable aviation fuel.
That's it. So if you want a great one article to explain just where we are with SAF in the UK at the moment, March Aerospace has it.
It's particularly good because it's actually because there are so many now. It's quite hard to keep track with all these various startups and established players. This really lays it out in black and white.
Thank you.
Jack, what about you? What else has caught your eye on this issue?
The Earth and Space Sustainability Initiative hosted a one-day conference at Hamilton Place at the end of January, and this is where they actually went through a lot of the issues pertaining to the increased use of space in all of our lives, particularly how we manage the number of surplus and debris satellites when they come down, and the risks and challenges those pose, which is becoming more prevalent by the day.
So that's talking about trying to prevent the pollution of space, so basically like the oceans or like the ozone layer in a way, isn't it?
We've got the opportunity to stop the pollution before it gets to a stage where we are with the oceans and climate change. So we've got to get in early to actually regulate this and actually make a difference before it's too late.
Yeah.
We've got the opportunity to do that.
What about you, Steve?
Great. It's something we touched on earlier, actually, when we were talking about Ukraine, an article from Teresa Poltrova on the use of small drones in conflict in Ukraine. So particularly first-person view, looking at how this has developed over the 3 years of the war and the countermeasures that have come in from them. And just asking, is the West ready for this? We touched on it earlier in terms of, that if we're putting fast jets over, in close air support over flying combat air patrols over Ukraine, then going to have no effect really at all on these small first-person drones. So what does that mean in terms of a defence landscape and also on home defence as well? We've looked at this in the past with different features. It's without planting ideas, there's the malevolent forces. It's a very easy tool to be used for malicious purposes, and asking the question: are we ready for that? What are we doing to defend ourselves?
And this article, it really lays bare how fast things have changed. It's just saying about how each side has had to really move quickly in order to stay one step ahead of the other.
Always the way in war, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, linking back again, and here's the thought as well for the geopolitics we were talking about earlier is in the US seemingly alienating Ukraine at the moment. If you think about it in the world, where are the world's most expert drone operators? People who are right on the cutting edge of air warfare, on drone warfare. They're all in Ukraine, and you might, thinking ahead, defending, say somewhere like Taiwan.
Yeah.
You might need to draw on these people, their expertise, because they've got up against a peer enemy, and they are actually creating the next the future of warfare.
And it's not just the operating; it's the manufacturing of it as well. You've got the cottage industries, haven't you? Somebody's back room making a drone for a couple of $100 that is either single use or very few use. And
in the hundreds of thousands, millions even.
Absolutely.
That's what they're talking. That's the sort of thing that the US is attempting to replicate for its own project. I think it's actually called Project Replicator. Project Replicator. Ukraine is doing it.
On a scale that would have been hard to imagine beforehand.
Yeah, indeed. So on the civil side, this issue we've got something on CRM, so that's cockpit resource management. Obviously, it's airlines. Looking at sort of flight safety. That's from Kimberly Perkins and co-author Fabio Mantoli. And that's looking at the next generation of cockpit resource management. We've had a lot of, obviously, it's come a long way in cockpit resource management, and it's sort of the softer skills, command gradient, and it's really looking at the next generation of that now. She writes in the article, her and a co-author, about there's quite a bit of pushback on that. Is that people there's someone that's still of the older bold think, this is woke.
It's a bit too touchy feely
stuff. Just get on, fly the plane. That has changed. I think it has changed quite a bit. But there still seems to be some sort of holdouts there. And it's just an interesting piece, I think, on where are we now and what still needs to be.
I think it's a wider perception thing, isn't it? You look back at the Toronto incident and the fact that it was a female pilot on board and the backlash that there was with that.
Yeah.
There still is, unfortunately, these attitudes out there. Yeah. And the place we really don't need that is in the cockpit.
Yeah. And the other article we've got it in the this issue is from our next generation board. We have something there on creative stimulation, but looking at the bridge between sort of design and creativity, and really looking at the opportunity. We have these great tools there to design aircraft, computerized tools, and wondering there about I suppose where we're going back to basics a little bit and sort of sketching on the back of envelopes.
We're going back to the day when you could tell which manufacturer had made an aeroplane because of the way it looked. A Geoffrey de Havilland tail always looked like a Geoffrey de Havilland tail, rather than the jelly mould that we have now, effectively, where the CFD and the computer algorithms say this is the most efficient shape. Is there room for personality, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, actually, I was thinking about this in an odd way. I was thinking about this on the motorway the other day. I'm driving to Cosford, and look at the different shapes of cars, and obviously there's the styling of cars. And I was thinking, there's quite a bit of minor divergence there, where you've got the opportunity to put your brand stamp on it. You've got these little shapes and humps and kind of, and you would think if they were going purely off aerodynamic design, if they're purely off your CFD, purely off your wind tunnel, kind of research, everything would look the same. But there's still obviously that kind of signature.
I guess in the car market, it's so competitive. You've got to make your products stand out, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, but it's again the jelly mould. How the cars look the same. I think the point of the article is actually really valid in that have we lost these skills because we rely too much on CFD and computers?
Yeah. And of course, obviously, we've got Afterburner. We've got a report there on the Apollo 13 Aero Society late night. That was a great night. We've got Flight Crowd. I ran it from Flight Crowd. We've got the Coventry Conference, and we've got your branch news and events. Please send your branch news and events, your pictures to Deputy to Steve Bridgewater at stephenbridgewater.bridgewater@aerosociety.com. He will be taking all your stuff in there from all our branches and divisions. Upcoming events, shout-outs, what have we got coming up? Well, it's a busy month, isn't it? It is
March, April, May, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So here we've got a contrail management workshop. IATA and RAS are holding that. Interestingly, we've got actually in the news, we've got there a French airline who's doing some work on contrail management using a TALE system, which I didn't know was in service on contrail avoidance. And in fact, FlexJet, a business fractional operator, had been doing some contrail management tests with business aviation. So that looks like it's going to be a really interesting and topical conference on how aviation can slash its climate impact. We've got the Single Pilot Ops Conference, 19th to 20th of March. That is probably going to be a standout conference there on flight ops and whether people, what the industry is doing, the challenges, the barriers, the opportunities maybe. Looking forward to that. We've got Aero Society Late, Quiznomit. That's going back. Quizmaster here. So assemble your team of crack geeks. And come along to win glorious prizes and take away the title of champion.
Including this year tickets to the Royal International Air Tattoo for our winning team. So there's a lot at stake, and of course the coveted Cunningham Trophy.
The Cunningham Trophy, yeah. So that is a really a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, last year was good as well, wasn't it?
Brilliant. It's I as quizmaster I enjoy the banter as well. So. Feel free to come along and heckle and join in the fun and games.
Bring a team, or if you're not in a team, come along your own. We'll put you in a team of that. But it's an excellent night.
It's a brilliant event, having taken part in the previous year.
The last two quizzes have actually been won by teams of people who didn't meet each other until the night. So we've got some people who take very seriously, bring a crack team of 6 people. Others who just meet up on the night and still manage to win.
Brilliant. We've got the remotely piloted autonomous aircraft conference, 23rd, 24th of March. That is something to put in your diaries as well. RPAS, that's looking more on the civil side of UAVs and drones, but still something that is very, very topical at the moment.
Yeah.
Think of wind races. And then obviously coming up further in the future, we've got the annual banquet and the FCAS summit. I'm sure those are already on your radar anyway. If not, why not? FCAS summit, I think, given the news at the moment, and SDR, geopolitics, that is going to be a very, very interesting and kind of insightful conference. So finally, what have we been watching, reading, playing? Who wants to start us off?
I'll start if you like. Well, on Channel 4 in the UK, Top Guns Inside the RAF has returned for a second series, and this time it's covering operations at RAF Akrotiri, Waddington and Coningsby. So it's everything from Typhoon instruction to operations over Syria. And most interesting is operations of the Reaper UAV. It's really quite amazing the amount of coverage that's given to these operations. So the cameras are allowed inside the operations centre at Waddington.
Is that the first time they've been allowed in there?
As far as I know, yes, yeah.
Interesting. What about you, Steve?
Mate, I've got a prop.
You've got a prop, okay.
For those of you that are not watching on YouTube, I'm sorry. I have been reading Two-Seat Spitfires, the complete story, which is by Greg Davis and Peter Arnold, the well-known Spitfire historian, and John Sanderson. And it's looking, as the title would suggest, at the two-seat Spitfires that were built just after the war. So obviously there were no two-seat Spitfires built during World War II. At the end of the war, some were taken back, refurbished, fitted with a second cockpit, and sold to the likes of India, Netherlands, Ireland. And some of those still survive, and they've found a great use in the last, probably 10 years now of SSAC flights. So those are the companies where you can go and pay your hard-earned money for a flight in a Spitfire. And this book also touches on the new ones that are being built. So the rides industry now is so popular that people are taking wrecked Spitfires, digging bits out of the ground from France and wherever it happens to be, and rebuilding them as two-seaters. A big debate, if they weren't two-seaters in the war, should you rebuild them? My argument would be, if they weren't two-seaters, they wouldn't be rebuilt in the first place. They'd still be in a hole in the ground. So, really in-depth history, some great archive pictures as well, and a really, really interesting book, actually.
So why were there no two-seater Spitfires built during World War II when there was part of training? Was it just everything was just for the front line?
It was for the front line. You had advanced trainers, so you would go through the elementary flight training system. So you go either Magister, Tiger Moth, then you get to things like the Miles Master, the Harvard, and then you go to the operational conversion unit. There was no real time to spend in the back of it or front of a two-seat Spitfire. There was no need. But then post-war, the need arose. There was less urgency to get people to the front line flying the aeroplane. You wanted to teach them to fly the Spitfire properly. So nations, obviously, at the end of the war, lots of countries bought surplus Spitfires from the UK. So a lot of the deals came with two-seaters as part of that package.
Okay. For what have I been playing, trying to, I've just had a little bit of a dabble with this, but it's a new strategy game called Task Force Admiral, and this is based around the Pacific War, 1942 Battle of Midway. It's a strategy game, but it's all like a flight simulator that's included in it. It's in early access at the moment, but it's basically you can carrier battles.
Okay.
And some really, really interesting stuff there in carrier warfare in World War II, because you're controlling a carrier, you've got kind of escorts and things like that, and you've got the air wings there, you've got your SBDs, you've got your Dauntless, you've got your Wildcats. But a lot of it is, from what I've seen, and I've only just scratched the surface, a lot of it is synchronizing your operations and planning ahead. So your scouting, scouts get out, your torpedo bombers are lined up ready to go. You're not caught napping, and having this sort of idea of and some really great details. The carriers turn into wind when it's time to launch operations. You have to spot them, so the aircraft are pulled back on deck.
Yeah.
Sounds incredibly
You have to
detailed.
go, and you've got to be thinking there. What's on the carrier deck, and you know if and this is you having read about Midway and the battles of the Pacific, where sometimes it turns on these little things of chance where aircraft are being fueled or being rearmed, and then a strike comes in. And you go, oh wow, so really, really interesting game. Lots of potential. It's in early access. I think that there's a demo at the moment actually, so that's why I'm talking about it. But go and have a look at it if you've got any interest at all. And also they put in they've got like a Kickstarter to develop the game more. There's an inbuilt flight simulator in it almost. So they've got a working sort of flight simulator, so the physics actually is spot on. So if you look at some of the videos of the Wildcats, like, you can see the undercarriage kind of bounce and the hook and stuff like that. So for anyone with memories of Combat Flight Simulator 2, Battlehawks, I think, some of the old Whacker Pros games, you might remember, Task Force Admiral, check it out.
Brilliant.
Right, okay, and on that note, we're going to come to the end of this, so where can people look to keep up with us today?
Me, I'm about giving up on X now. I'm on LinkedIn and on Facebook, both as Stephen with a PH, Stephen Bridgewater.
Jack?
I'm on X under RAEST Jack R.
Okay, so I'm still on X, keeping a watch on what's going on there, RAS Timar, and also on Blue Sky as well. So any questions you've got, any viewer feedback, please do send them in. Do you like what we're talking about? Do you not like what we're talking about? Questions, advice, comments, please send them in, and we'll see you next time.
Assuming we've got all caught Tim's cold, we'll see you next month.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.